Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Legion Season 2, Episode 11. It is called Chapter 19. It is the season finale. And here we go. So full spoilers for the episode as always, and for the season as a whole now. Apologies, just a little bit later than usual. We're recording this on Friday. Not intentional.
No, it wasn't.
No, just delays. Namely, on Connor's side. So we are here talking about the finale. I think before we get to any general impressions or any general sort of feelings on the finale as a whole, and perhaps the season as a whole, which we'll do at the end as well, can we talk about how the opening scene in this might be the greatest scene in the history of TV?
It's pretty phenomenal.
We start this episode with David floating along the ground, singing Behind Blue Eyes. A cover that I've not heard before. I don't know if it was created for this show or if it's just one that I'm not familiar with.
Probably the latter.
Yeah, very probably. But he's floating along, and then Farouk's floating along, and then we have the big cartoon fight from their minds in the sky.
It reminds me of like a Gorillaz music video in
Yeah,
style.
yeah. I was into this. I was into this opening scene.
So good.
Quite a bit. This was good fun. I think I do have critiques of how the finale wraps things up a little bit.
Oh, I definitely do. But this scene taken on its own is probably the highlight of the show.
This scene on its own is fantastic. I can't fault the opening scene.
Because we were impressed with the mental duel at the end of last season.
Yes, with the chalk. Yes.
Yeah. Like, that was pretty inventive. And this just took that and just ran with it.
Yeah, and at one point when David's losing, or when David's winning almost, the Shadow King, like the cartoon becomes the Shadow King, the Demon King.
Yeah.
With the big eyes and the head and the shape and all that. And of course Larry interrupts this by shooting the tuning fork, which disables their powers for a duration, and it turns into just man versus man, and David starts bashing his head in with a rock. Proper caveman style. And that's when Sid appears with the head of the Minotaur that her and Kerry have dispatched. And she's got a gun. And she now has serious doubts in David, which is kind of what leads us into what the real meat of this episode is. The real meat of what the finale is. And it's interesting. I feel like, on the one hand, I think there's some really smart stuff going on here.
But
on the other hand, there's elements that feel kind of rushed and don't feel they've been built up enough, or they've been too drawn out to feel that they're as impactful as they could have been.
do you know what the problem is for me? I feel like the pacing of this episode is all over the place.
Mm.
Like, it starts so strong, and then it grinds to a halt. And there was like 3 or 4 times during this episode where I thought, oh, that's the end, and then it kept going. And I feel like that's maybe the problem, that some of this stuff feels like, no, this should have been dealt with at the start of the next season, not at the end of this season.
Of course, you're not talking about the scene where David has his turn, where they try to imprison him, right? Like that has to be the end of this season. That's kind of what we're building up to.
It does.
I think, the scene itself is quite good, and I think there's some definite great, because I think it comes into play all the elements from all the infomercials we've been talking about all season, particularly the idea that the Shadow Kings kind of convinced them, and convinced Sid more specifically, that David's going to be the one who does this, right? And we've talked about how, he actually kind of did that because he showed Sid that, therefore that's why Sid in the future thinks it's David who did this in the first place.
Yeah.
It was kind of like it happened because he put it in motion to happen. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially. Yeah. But Sid hits some really interesting points back, because David does cross a line in this episode, because Sid doesn't trust him. Sid's trying to put him down, and after she gets knocked out, when Lenny intervenes, David messes with her mind and makes her forget everything negative about him that she's just kind of learned, and her general feeling. And then she still wants to sort of be on her own for a little bit. She feels a little bit weird, and he then sort of with his powers goes into her room, not physically, but sort of enough that it's to her it is physical. She can still touch him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they have sex. And this was the point in the episode where I'm like, well, not the first point. The first point was when he messed with her mind. I was like, oh no, David, this is crossing the line.
Yeah.
But then when they started having sex, like after this, when like she's only like feeling this way towards him because he's messed with her head to to bring back the Sid that he thinks should be there, that not this weird new Sid that's learned things. Even if the information she has is incorrect, even if what she's been told is wrong, this is like crossing some major boundaries. And I did like when she brought that up, but at the trial, where she just stepped forward and said, "David, you're telling me you're okay, but you essentially drugged me and had sex with me. That's what happened."
Yeah. What this episode essentially boils down to is he just can't handle rejection.
Yeah.
Because that's it. It's the moment where she's like, no, I used to love you, and that's the point where he snaps, where he's like, no, okay, I can't be having that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a factor of it. I think I was thinking about it more in terms of, when Sid tells him that, Melanie told you, you're not mentally ill. You have powers and you didn't understand them. But the truth is, you're both. You have powers, but you're also mentally ill. And maybe it's the powers that made you mentally ill, but you are mentally ill in some capacity. So to me, I was kind of reading the whole thing as he does have to be in check. Someone has to keep him in check. Like his power is so strong that as soon as he's tempted to just take control, like he did here with Sid, he's essentially playing God and can't be stopped.
And that's what the various parts of his psyche even play into him. So no, you are God.
Yeah, we see that. We see like multiple Davids at the same time, kind of sort of debating with them. And he even sees the first infomercial in his mind on the TV.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And what gets me as well, though, is that even from the other side, so David is in the wrong. David does a lot of bad stuff in this episode, and he's definitely going down this path. But at the same time, I think all the other characters are in the wrong as well, to a point. I feel like this ties into the Moral Panic infomercial, where they all just kind of like go along with this, and they're like, oh, we have to do something about David right now. Like, this is dangerous. Because they believe Farouk enough that they let Farouk out of his cage, which, by the way, I like that his inhibitor looked like a crown, because he's a king. That was a nice touch. But he comes out, and I love the shot of him walking out in his suit.
But it feels like, I mean, I get that you don't trust David right now, but why do you suddenly trust Farouk? Yeah,
Farouk's done a lot of bad shit. It feels weird to trust him at all. I think the big mistake they make for me, though, again, all parties are in the wrong. David, perhaps more so than anyone, but the big mistake they make, and this feels like, I wonder if Noah Hawley knows someone who's had addiction problems or something like that. Because it really felt like to me when they said, oh, you have to accept that you're going to be treated and be back in a mental hospital and take treatment, or we'll have to terminate you. They give him an ultimatum. Rather than trying to help him and trying to sort of encourage him in the right direction, they basically just put their foot down and say, no, you either do it this way, which is safer, even though it's technically the right thing to do, or we're going to just kill you. Like, they give him an ultimatum.
Yeah, they don't get him to make the choice of his own free will, because this isn't really a choice, is it, on his part? They're giving him, it's do it our way or die. That's not much of a choice.
And to be fair, it's not our characters who say that. That's the Vermilion, that's Fukuyama who make that ultimatum. It's not Sid and the rest of the group.
But none of the rest of them question it. None of them go against it. They all seem to be on board with this line of thinking.
Yeah, I don't think they discussed it beforehand, though, like to this point. Like, we're going to threaten death. Like, I think that was on the moment where they didn't know how to react to that.
Quite possibly, but none of them object, is the point.
And so I think there's some interesting things at play. I think the idea that he does need an intervention, he needs to be brought back in line in some way, but they do go about it in the incorrect way. They go about it in a way that you shouldn't treat someone like this. You have to kind of encourage them into the right choice. Ultimatums aren't so I feel like it nails a lot of really great things that it's trying to do in this scene. It's just the getting is there. I don't think I feel like David crossed some big lines in this episode. Right, he did, and I felt him cross those lines. I don't really feel like we've built to that, though.
No, it was just like, I mean, because we had the episode, with all the different variations of David, and one of them took those, or maybe a couple of them took those easy routes of crossing those lines and doing things. So it was set up as a possibility, of course, in things like that, and then last episode was where we had Sid learning that, okay, maybe he is going to turn, maybe he is going to do bad things. Maybe. And then all of a sudden, okay, no, that's just it. He's over that line. Because last episode felt like so much of a manipulation. It didn't feel like David was actually there yet. It felt like it was distorting it just to make the point to Sid.
Yeah, the leap to it, and again, the personal stuff with Sid this episode is the stuff that lands for me. I think, but the leap to him, going all powerful. Like when he's in that bubble and he just says, "Well, screw this, you had your chance," and he just like, you know, brute forces his way out and disappears. And again, I do like the idea that he goes to Lenny. Lenny enables him. She's part of his problem.
Yeah.
You know, because she's like, "Oh, what about Blondie?" He's like, "Oh, there is no Blondie," and then they disappear. You know, that's how we end the season.
I did think it was a little weird that she was all completely chained up and Farouk was out and about.
That's a bit odd. I mean, I buy that she should be locked up in a cell. Don't get me wrong. Like we're not debating.
Yeah, but I just mean in context of this, she'd gone along with David's plan. Carrie and Kerry knew this as well. You know, they were kind of, yeah, okay, this is all part of the greater plan. And then throw her in chains, and you know, she did help undeniably.
She's a wild card.
She is a wild card, but Farouk's out walking about. Why is she, like, you know, literally just chains wrapped around her?
I do not know why they're okay with Farouk just being around and not having his powers.
I don't get this at all. It really just confuses me.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I'll tell you a scene that I loved. I loved Melanie and Oliver inside the cube, the ice cube.
Not remembering words.
I loved that so much. It's like, oh, it's, you know, it's been how long? How long has it been? It's shorter than that. Soup.
Yeah. No, soup's not the word.
Soup's not the word.
Been longer than soup.
Been longer than soup. And then they refer to Carrie as Glasses McLabco or something like that. Yeah. And then Carrie's the girl who kicks people. That was good. It's like, oh, you can't forget Sid. I did forget Sid. But I love when we're talking about Farouk, because they're kind of like doing. It's like they've went away to just sort of live in this, you know, inside their mind, inside Oliver's sort of mind bubble, and they're just away from everything, and they're talking about everything in the past tense, and it's kind of teasing the turn in what we're about to see with the rest of the episode. But I like the casual interview attitude of the whole thing, because at one point Oliver, they're talking about Farouk. He's like, oh yes, Farouk, that evil man. Very soothing voice, though, I found, and you know, it was very casual the way they were discussing him. It was, I don't know, there was a tone to it that I just appreciated. It was that Legion quirkiness that was just, you know, it works.
It was. I feel some of that has been a bit missing this season.
Yeah, there's maybe not been as much of it, especially in the back half of the season, I think.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to critique the season as a whole, I do think 11 episodes was too many.
Yeah, I do as well.
I actually think 8 was perfect, and they kind of overdid it by stretching out to 11.
Yeah, I think especially this last 2, which was, you know, originally 1 and then was they decided it was too long. I feel like this probably could have been cut down to 1 episode, frankly.
Yeah, maybe. I certainly think. I think maybe some of the first half could have incorporated some of the episode beforehand. You know, the one that really felt like it was kind of extraneous.
Yeah.
And then maybe kind of made like a sort of weird, put the last 3 episodes into 2 episodes, essentially. Sort of.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm with you.
Yeah, do a concoction like that. Yeah. But I mean.
Either way, I feel like 10 was probably too much on its own. When it was just 10.
It seemed fine in theory until we actually were like halfway through the season. Once we got to that back third of the season, it started like, okay, this is going a bit. Because when I got to the end of the season, I realized, oh wait, we've not actually advanced that much in plot this year. Not really.
No, I feel what happened is they got the extra episodes and they went, great, we can do a couple more, detours, because I feel like we did meander a lot in especially the back half of this season. And I feel like, we went, oh yeah, let's go check in on that for an episode. We'll go do that, and things that didn't really advance the main plot necessarily, and just did concept episodes.
Not a lot of autonomy in this finale either. He's been missing for a couple now. I mean, know where he is, obviously, but
yeah.
He's oddly absent. I thought it was weird we didn't see him at all in the finale.
I feel like the supporting cast in general has suffered a bit this season. David obviously, of course, gets the lion's share of time, and Sid followed that, but Melanie was gone for 90% of the season.
No, we didn't. I mean, we complained about that a lot, and a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah.
We got the payoff
just on
to that.
top of that, I feel like Ptonomy was around at the start, but it's kind of gone now.
Yeah. It's a shame because Farouk, who's he's not a new character technically, but in terms of like his presence, he's actually great. Like I think he's a fantastic addition. It's just kind of a shame that we've kind of ignored a lot of the other characters a fair bit this season, and it's a shame because it's a really nice mixed cast, like with different personalities. In fact, one of my favorite scenes this episode was probably Kerry describing the violence with the Minotaur, and Carrie just kind of like. Not now. I'm trying to see things. Which, by the way, I love that he had a device to like see what happened in the desert.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I thought that was just a bit easy. I thought it was a really cheap, easy way of them discovering David's turn.
I would.
Oh no, I just got a thing.
Well, it's not just that though. It's the rat. You know, Farouk talks to the rat and sends the rat around and speaks to everyone. So I'm not going to say that. I liked how steampunk it was. I liked the idea that he has all these cables sticking out and he's like, there's all this very temperamental technology that he's just kind of trying to get like a brief glimpse of what happened without them ever explaining how exactly he has this, like, or how it's working or where the feed is coming from.
Yeah, he just says, "Oh, I've compiled all the data into an image of what happened."
And this is a bit of information from season 1 that I'm forgetting that ties all this together, but
maybe
I don't think so.
If I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan of that. It felt like a really easy way of just having them up to speed.
Yeah, it's just a minor plot point in terms of the you know, like that doesn't bother me because the drama of what it's doing, you know, where it leads to is that's the important part.
No, I agree, but I think it's just a symptom of this feeling rushed at the end of you know, that choice from David to make that turn. I feel that should have probably been a couple of episodes ago, and we should have had Sid not know the truth for a little while and played with that. Instead, doing it all here in the one episode does feel a bit rushed to me.
Yeah, because she gets her mind kind of wiped, if you will, and then she knows, you know, a few
20 minutes later.
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes later. It would have been maybe interesting to see him control her for a period of time, like go a couple of episodes. Because, I mean, again, there's some great scenes here relating to all this stuff. When he goes to see Farouk in his cell, which is the same time he's having sex with Sid, which really reminded me of Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen. You know, it's like, oh, she ain't going to be happy about that. Even with forget the coercion. Like, even just the idea that his attention's not all there is probably going to piss her off, first and foremost. Well, not first and foremost. The coercion is definitely the first thing. Let me make that clear.
But that's just on top of it.
Yes, but anyway, so he talks to Farouk, and Farouk's like, "Oh, but you're controlling her. She's not doing this of free will. You know, you've wiped her." And he tries to justify, "Oh, I've just made her remember who she is. Oh, remember, eh?" And
yeah, and this thing, like, individually, these scenes are great. I wanted more of this, more time spent on this period.
No, I agree. I think it feels a little bit rushed, and we kind of jumped straight to a few things at the end when we could have probably spent a couple, you know, let's say it stays at 11 episodes, we could have pushed all these events, or at least most of them, this the start of all this stuff, back a couple of episodes, and then spent time building to no, we're going to put him on trial.
Yeah.
And we're going to hold him in a bubble and actually give him the ultimatum. And build to that.
I want to see them discussing what do they do with David. Like, what are they going to, before they go to the trial, they're going, right, what do we do? What's our move? How do we help him, or do we try and help him, and do we just, do we deal with him? I want to see that from all these side characters, and I feel like I was lacking that in particular.
The focus does seem a bit weird. Like I say, there's some great scenes in here, and the way it handles the sort of the mistakes in sort of both sides. You know, from David crosses a lot of lines, but the other characters do make some mistakes in how they approach him about it, even though they're in the right for approaching him in the first place. So they absolutely are. This is how you don't deal with it. They've just driven him further away. So you know, the show is still very much about someone with a mental illness and how you handle that. And it, you know, season 3 I think could be interesting with David kind of on the run as kind of an anti-hero / villain.
Yeah,
with Lenny.
And that's the thing. My problems with this episode are less. It's not that what's in here is bad. It's just what's missing. I think that's the bigger crux of the problem here, is that I'm just lacking context and just weight to some of these moments.
See, I mean, the show typically in the past has liked excluding certain things to keep you guessing and keep the flow feeling unhinged, kind of like David's mind. That's kind of what it's emulating at times.
Yeah.
And that's worked very well in the past. I think late into this season, though, there's some things that maybe could have just played a little bit simpler, a little bit more straightforward to make the drama of it land a little bit more. There's maybe one too many things where you're like, oh, gotcha, this is what was really going on. And
it kind of plays into its own hype almost.
And I like that, again, I like that stuff to a point, but there's just a few things that ring a little bit too forced here at the end.
I think the point is you can do all of that stuff, but you have to have the drama to back it up. And it feels like there are a few points in this season where it did the quirky Legion thing at the sake of the character drama. Like, it did it just because it's what it's expected to do, not because it actually improved the characters' arcs.
And I would say it's all in the last kind of third. Like, you know, up until the episode we mentioned with all the different Davids. So when he was dealing with his sister's death, that was that was probably the best episode of the season. That was a phenomenal episode.
Definitely.
Everything up until then was working pretty tip top. There's very little to complain about up until that point.
I think there was one episode in that first chunk that we weren't too hot on. Maybe like episode 4.
I can't distinguish them in my head.
I do remember early on being like, yeah, okay, this was a bit of a weaker episode.
Oh, was it the Sid? No, because that was after, right? Was this? Oh no, it was a Sid one. Yeah, the Sid like in her mind. Yeah. There you go. Okay, there was one. Yes, okay, that was a weak one. But for the most part, the first half was really solid. Up until about episode 7, 8, really, really solid. And then the last chunk, the last 3 or 4 episodes, and there was good stuff because the last episode was mostly good action, and then this one had a lot of good elements. But this is where the faults of the season have really kind of shone through a little bit.
It felt a bit overstretched at the end.
Yeah, but at the same time, feel like it rushed other things. It's weird. It's almost this weird double-edged sword of some things feel too rushed, but other things felt like they spent too much time on them, which is actually almost more frustrating because it's like, we'll just take some time away from these things and give them to those things, and then we can be happy.
That's the point. It's because it's proven that the time's there. It's just not being spent on the right things at the right time, and that is more annoying.
So I don't know. I hate to be kind of lukewarm on the finale because I think it sets up some really interesting stuff for season 3, and I'm hopeful that it can bounce back a little bit.
Yeah, it's great ideas, but and good individually scene to scene. Like each scene, I don't think there's any scene in particular where I go, no, that's not a great scene.
Yeah. Like we say, opening scene, one of the best. I think the confrontation scene with him is actually really, really smart in what it's doing. It's really good drama on its own.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that it's just lacking some space and gravitas to really bring these moments, because like this should be a huge moment, where they come in and confront him, and we have this ending. But instead, I'm feeling like, oh, okay, we're doing this now because it's the end of the season. Yeah,
I do think it doesn't earn it. Like, for example, the moment where Sid realizes what he's done to her, I feel like that's the end of an episode before the finale, maybe.
Yeah.
Where she realizes that, she has that moment of realization and realizes she's being used.
Well, this is why I'm saying I feel like there's a few times where I feel like it could have ended. Like that sort of have that moment and end there for the season. Don't do the trial with David. Start next season with the trial. And and have him on the run and go from there. I think the cynic in me says they do the trial here so that they can have a time jump again over the season and be like, look at all the stuff that's happened while you were away. Look at what David's been up to. Whereas I don't think that was actually the best choice narratively for the flow and the structure with where we were in the story at this point.
Yeah, I do think we might get flashbacks to it, but I do think the moment where Sid realizes what's happened to her is maybe a dramatic moment where we're kind of robbed of. Just it's such a big moment for her character, and she's absolutely the second lead of the show. She's the next one, with David kind of gone AWOL. He'll still obviously have a lot of screen time next season, no doubt, but she'll kind of be the main character in terms of the group that we care about.
Yeah, I'd expect at least the first episode back to not see David, or maybe see him once at the very end, and we'll just be, with our characters here, just searching for him. Okay, what do we do?
Either that or the opposite. It'll be all David, and then it'll be episode 2. We'll get back to the main group and see how they're handling it. Yeah, I
feel like there's more impact in hiding David, and we, usually this show likes us in David's mind, right? We want to feel the chaos, but I feel like there's more benefit in keeping us with Division 3 and being like, hey, we don't know where he is. We don't know quite what's going on.
I think I would just expect the latter, just because I don't think they want to have the first episode of the season to not have the main character. That'd be why I think they wouldn't do that. But
I agree, but again, I feel like it's kind of almost too similar to this season, where David comes in and he's the one out of the loop, and he's the one catching everything up. I feel like do the opposite next year.
I feel like what they can't do at the start of next season, though, is do a repeat of this season where he actually comes back in the start of the episode. Like, they find him, like, almost immediately. And it's like, okay, where have you been? And maybe he's got amnesia or something, and he can't remember what he's done in the last year.
We need some time. I know there's going to be a time jump, but we need to see some of them searching for him. Because we didn't get that this season.
Yeah.
That's well known. He was gone for a year, and they clearly have been searching. to no look, but they were searching.
Yeah.
So I think we need to see it next year.
Yeah. So it's a shame that we're not just raving positivity with this finale. There's a lot of good things in there. I don't want to sound too down on it because as much as we're discussing a lot of problems, there's a lot of excellent scenes. There really are.
And there is, and that, like I said, that
great acting as well. I think we should really commend the acting from everyone involved.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Multiple Davids, Farouk's fantastic, Sid's fantastic. All these people put in great performances.
I think Farouk is the standout surprise of the season in that, when we learned that they were recasting over the break between seasons, it wasn't immediately clear because they wanted to have him as a body. The way that they were describing the recasting was almost like we were still going to get the Shadow King. And then, so there was a little bit of worry, I guess, as to why were they doing this. But no, Farouk like this has been the standout in terms of that stuff for me.
Well, that was the season. That's season 2 of Legion. Season 3 has been confirmed. It's renewed. We'll have that sometime next year, so we'll be back for that. But let us know what you thought of the season and the finale as a whole. How do you feel about David's turn, the character's reaction to it, trying to contain him running off with Lenny? Like I say, I like the part that he runs off with Lenny because, again, she's the enabler. She's from the bad side of him. If his addiction was drugs, she's the fellow addict who's the bad influence essentially. But hey, so yeah, let us know, like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. If you want to do anything else, is there anything else that I usually say?
Twitter? You done that?
At mail_fuzz for channel updates. I might have done that.
Yeah,
this is why you should pay attention in case I blank, and you can fill me in on what I've not done yet.
I should do, but yeah, I'll be honest. I was like, what are we doing next in the recording schedule? If you want to wrap my brain.
If you want to have an ice cream, go get some ice cream, put some sprinkles on it, maybe a little caramel or something like that. Enjoy it. Do the nice thing. It's middle of summer after all. So that's us. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla with sprinkles or caramel or something?